Well, good afternoon and welcome to another podcast away here on Radio Christmas 87.7 FM with me, Duncan Dyson.
And me, Roseanne McKelwey.
And in the studio this afternoon we have Bill Duperouzel. Is that right?
Duperouzel.
Duperouzel.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, yeah. Duperouzel, who is the CEO of WorkAid. And it's great, Bill. Thanks very much for coming in this afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me. And can I say g'day, Duncan? And g'day, Roseanne?
You can.
In Australia, they don't say good morning or good
G'day,
afternoon
mate.
anymore. They always say just g'day.
G'day, indeed. So welcome.
We've already established your Australian roots then. Take us back. Where did it begin? Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Perth in Western Australia. The family actually have lived in West Australia since 1858, believe it or not. But it's interesting in that the family farm, which is situated at York, 60 miles east of Perth, is still in the family name today. My cousin farms the farm, which is wheat, and in particular sheep. Cousin David has had the farm now for about 20 or 30 years and doing an excellent job. So it's wonderful to have that farm still in the family name today. That means a lot to me because it is my spiritual home, if you like. Every time I go back to West Australia, I've got to go back to the farm and kiss the earth, the gravel. It's my spiritual home.
It does seem to me, I've got some Australian relatives myself, that Australians are really terribly interested in their history and where they came from in a way that perhaps we here, because our history goes back so far, we don't really think about it in the same way. Not to the extent that you do in Australia.
Well, I think that's true, and I'm very fortunate in that I had the gift of curiosity when it came to the family history, because as a teenager I used to ask my father, well, where did the family come from, and why did a French person, great-grandfather, come to Australia when he spoke French? Why didn't he go to French-speaking Canada?
Well, fair questions. Did you find out the answers?
Yes, I did, and when I undertook my travels, having qualified as a CPA accountant, certified practicing accountant, I was determined to travel.
As all Australians do.
To see my friend Addy in Holland, who we went to school together with, but he went back to Holland quite suddenly, and I was determined when I left Australia. I caught up with my mates in Canada, and I worked in British Columbia, Ontario, and in the Canadian Rockies at Jasper Park Lodge in Alberta. But I was the only one that went on to America before coming on to the Netherlands to catch up with my buddy.
We'll come back to your travels in a minute.
We will, because we want to listen to your first track. Click goes the shears. Trying to say that very sensibly there. Tell us why this track, Bill.
Well, it represents and symbolic, really, of Australian country music or folk music, and it resonates with me. It's one of my wife's favourite tracks, but it really represents Australian traditional songs and folk songs. In fact, my Auntie Ruby was a shearer's cook and travelled the Western Australian countryside cooking for all the shearers. And this particular track, I think, not only reminds me of her, but it's a favourite of my wife Janet's, but also I think it's symbolic and represents all I love about the Australian country music.
Out on the board, the old shearer stands, clasping his shears in his thin bony hand. Fixed is his gaze on a bare-bellied yoke. Glory if he gets a won't he make the ringer go. Quick go the shears, boys, quick, quick, quick. Wide is his blow as his hands move quick. The ringer looks around and is beaten by a blow, and he curses the old snagger with the bare-bellied yoke. Middle of the floor, in his cane-bottom chair, sits the boss of the board, with his eyes everywhere. He notes well each fleece as it comes to the screen, and he's paying strict attention that it's taken off clean. Quick go the shears, boys, click, quick, click. Wide is his blow as his hands move quick. The ringer looks around and he's beaten by a blow, and he curses the old snagger with the bare-bellied yoke. There stands the tall boy waiting in demand, with his black and tan heart in his tarry hand. There he sees a sheep with a cat upon her back, and this is what he's waiting for. It's tie here, Jack. Click out the shears, boys, click, click, click. Wide is his blow as his hands were quick. The ringer looks around and is beaten by a blow, and he curses the old snagger with the bare-bellied owl. Shearing is all over, lads, we've all got our checks. Roll up your swags, boys, we're off on the tracks. The first pub that we come to, it's there we'll have a spree, and everyone that comes along, it's come and drink with me. Quick out the shears, boys, quick, quick, quick. Wide is his blow as his hands move quick. The ringer looks around and is beaten by a blow, and he curses the old snagger with the bare-bellied owl. Quick go the shears, boys, quick, quick, quick. Wide is his blow as his hands move quick. The ringer looks around and he's beaten by a blow, and he curses the old snagger with the bare-bellied owl.
So clearly you have a great love of Australia. Your roots are important to you, but the wanderlust took you and away you went. How old were you when you took off?
Well, I was 23, having qualified as an accountant, as I said, and I was on the first ship out of Fremantle, and I ended up on the Canberra, 50,000 tonner, and I went with a friend, and of course we travelled to Canada. And that's when I not only got exposure to living overseas, but I was determined to look through every phone book to see if I could find any Duperouzels.
And did you at that point?
Well, I did eventually, because having worked in Canada and America, when I was leaving New York to come to the Netherlands, I found a Duperouzel in a phone book. And I have to say, I'm guilty here, if a little bit of my culpa here. I borrowed the page out of the phone book, so excited as I was, before I left JFK.
Borrowed it. I'm sure you sent it back at a later date.
It was so exciting, because I then left New York, flying to Europe, determined more than ever to find out, well, where did the family come from? Why did they go to Australia? The Duperouzel I found, of course, had 2 R's in the name, which was a curiosity to me. But that laid the foundation of, when researching the family history, I actually researched everybody by that name, Duperouzel with 1 R, and Duperouzel with 2 R's.
So did you know already at that stage that researching your family story was going to become a lifelong project?
No, not at all, no. I think one was very naive at the time and thought, well, this is quite exciting. But really, until one got actually underway and started gathering all this information, it suddenly, the novelty sort of wears off to some extent, or it sort of takes on a new dimension called, this is going to be hard work. Who is everybody, and how do they all sort of fit into the family tree?
You can't carry this across on radio, but I'm sitting here holding this huge book that Bill's written, and it's quite amazing the amount of work that's gone into this, with maps and photographs and
family
documents trees. And family trees, and it's quite incredible document you got here. Leading on to our next song, you've chosen "Bloom Where You Are Planted."
Again, that's by the Reverend Kerry Landry, an American singer, and it's taken from a CD of Christian music, and it represents again my Christian faith, my Christian roots, and it's symbolic of never could I have realised or expected, having travelled from Australia, that I'd end up living in the UK, as I have now for many years. So I feel I have bloomed where I have been planted, and I'm ever so grateful to the blessings I've received throughout my life. And I'm very pleased with WorkAid to be able to put something back and to make a difference.
never work, yet look at the way our Father clothes them, each with a beauty for us.
Bloom, bloom, bloom where you planted, you will find your way. Bloom, bloom, bloom where you planted, you will have your day.
Some plant the seeds that others will water, but in all things God gives the growth. Come, let him garden the flowers within you. Come and discover some you've never known.
Bloom, bloom, bloom where you planted, you will find your way. Bloom, bloom, bloom where you planted, you will have your day.
Look at the love that lies deep within you. Let yourself be, let yourself be. Look at the gifts you have been given. Let them go free, let them go free.
Bloom, bloom, bloom where you planted, you will find your way. Bloom, bloom, bloom where you planted, you will have your day.
You will have your day.
You mentioned your faith just now. Is that something that's always been with you, or is that something you found along through your travels?
Always been with me, having gone to Christian schools in Fremantle, convent, Christian Brothers. Yes, and I think it dawned on me when I was in Canada, actually, as I travelled from place to place. The one thing I didn't have to put in my suitcase when I packed to go somewhere else was my faith. I could take it with me wherever I went. And I'm ever so grateful to have had the gift of faith, and I trust that it'll stay with me for the rest of my life.
And would you say it's coloured the decisions that you've made through your life?
It definitely influenced my decisions, and I'm ever so grateful. Particularly, I prayed a lot to the good Lord to help me and to give me the gifts to write this particular book on the family history. So I'd like to think he kept his side of the bargain. And so when the book was finished, I said, okay, well, what would you like me to do now? And that's when this opportunity with WorkAid came up.
Well, we're going to pick up on that in just a bit, but you've asked me to remind you to give your wife a mention just before this track begins, which is Hooked on a Feeling.
Well, there you go.
So give her a plug. Go on.
This is the track from 1971 by Jonathan King, and it was an exciting time to be in London, lots of fabulous music, but it's a song which we can both associate with because that was the time we met in May 1971. And would you believe we were in Earl's Court at an Aussie party? And this particular song means a lot to both of us because we can associate with that time we met. And I stayed in London for 2 years before eventually we were to marry.
Ooga chaka ooga 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 chaka ooga 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 chaka ooga 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 chaka ooga ooga. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. What kind of feeling? High on believing that you're in love with me. Lips are sweet as candy, the taste stays on my mind. Girl, you keep me thirsty for another cup of wine. Keep it up, girl. Yeah, you turn me on. I hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing like you're in love with me. Hooked on a feeling. High on believing like you're in love with me. Hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing like you're in love with me.
Coming back to this amazing book, we need to, before we move on to Work Aid, we do need to talk about it a little bit more. I'm just trying to see how many pages it's got. 260 odd pages?
It dates back to as far as 1580, and it covers 10 countries around the world. And there's quite a lot to do with Normandy, of course, which is where the family come from. So the research started off in 1971, and it took me through to 2002 when I started to write the book. But during that time, of course, the family, my wife Janet, and our 2 daughters, Adele and Suzanne, travelled to France many times, and the Channel Islands, undertaking the research. So it's in elapsed time, 71 to about 2002, nearly 30 years, and it took a year to write the book and to put together 7 family trees.
Wow.
Now this couldn't have been done without the dedication of my wife Janet, who is fluent in French, both the written word and the spoken word, and I've paid tribute to her in the book because she was my editor-in-chief and commander-in-chief, but she did the translations, and without her this book would never have been written, and without her encouragement. And I've dedicated this book, and I've written in here, I will be eternally grateful for your immeasurable contribution which has enabled me to fulfill my dream. So I'm absolutely thrilled to bits. It's a work of love, and my wife Janet, I'm eternally grateful for everything she's done. So
Now, there's been some programmes on TV recently I've been watching where, you know, they take famous people and they look back at their roots and discover all sorts of things. And for some of them, it's quite an emotional journey. Obviously, it must have been for you as well. But can you just say one interesting fact or something that came out of this book you thought, I didn't know that? It was quite, you know, quite amazing. Just pick one thing for us if you can.
Well, great-grandfather, who was called Aimable Duperouzel, from Normandy, went across to the Channel Islands in search of a better life in the 1850s. And little did he know that he was going to be chosen by Her Majesty and given a free ball and chain and a free ship passage to Australia to represent the colony in Perth as one of Her Majesty's convicts. I didn't know that.
And it's an interesting thing, isn't it, that once upon a time people might have been a bit embarrassed to admit that they came from the convicts. Now it's something to be worn as a badge of pride in Australia, isn't it?
It is, and I'm very, very proud, and I appreciate how difficult a life it was in the 1850s to survive. But it was interesting because in his second attempt to escape from prison in Guernsey, the crime book refers to the fact that prisoner Duperouzel was waiting to be transported for his crimes. And I'm saying, well, hang on a sec. He hadn't even had his trial. So I'm thinking about writing to the Queen to ask if he could be given a
posthumous pardon.
Pardon, because anyway. But that's particularly interesting.
Sounds like a great idea. Maybe that's why you've chosen the French track for your next song.
My French cousin, Gilbert Ledoux Duperouzel, he plays the accordion, and this particular track is a wonderful track. Singing about the Carentan area of Normandy, which is very much where we carried out our family research. And every time I hear the track, it reminds me of Gilbert, and I can just imagine him playing the accordion. And it is an emotional experience to hear this music, because he's been a lifelong friend for 40 years. So it means a lot. And it takes us back to all our family research and the friendships we've made along the way. And in particular, when we were touching and feeling documents that were hundreds of years old, and you touch, the feel, the smell, you can't do that on the internet today. So But Gilbert's a wonderful person, and we are very fond of him and Michelle and their 2 boys.
De Vire à Coutances, l'Harcourt à Donfont est un coin de France au fameux renom. La terre y est grasse et féconde, et ses fiers gars, même s'ils sont au bout du monde, ne l'oublie pas. C'est la forêt normande où l'on trouve partout horizon verdoyant, prairies et grasselandes, où la rose trémière accroche ses guirlandes aux pentes des toits bleus, nichés parmi les houes. C'est la forêt normande, c'est un coin de chez nous. De l'Orne à Falaise, de Bayeux à Caen, on y vit à l'aise, on y vit longtemps. Et les vieux mêlent en cortège sous les allées, leurs cheveux blancs aux fleurs de neige de leurs pommiers. C'est la forêt normande où l'on surprend partout le fol amour glissant, parfois en contrebande, le long des chemins creux, près des croix de légende, lorsque l'angélus teinte au fond du ciel très doux. C'est la forêt normande, c'est un coin de chez nous. Des rives de l'Eure jusqu'au bord du Loir, douces sont les heures, plus doux sont les soirs. Près d'un grand chêne centenaire, j'aime à dormir. Je voudrais ce coin solitaire pour y mourir. Dans la forêt normande, à l'abri des jaloux, et bien loin des humains, donneurs de sarabande. Sous les vastes arceaux que les arbres vous tendent, reposez pour toujours, cela doit être doux. Dans la forêt normande, dans un coin de chez nous, dans un coin de chez nous.
You're listening to Podcastaway on Radio Christmas. And our guest this afternoon is Bill Duperouzel.
Correct.
Obviously, we've established that that's French in origin. Has it at any point been Australianised?
Well, it has.
How
And
does
it's
Strine
interesting
say
you
it?
should ask that, because in French, the accent is on the first E. So it's pronounced Duperouzel. But in Australia, of course, they say Duperouzel.
Duperouzel.
Doesn't
So it's
sound
the way
quite as
they say
romantic,
it.
does
No,
it?
No.
Are there many of you in Australia now then?
Well,
Is it a
there
fairly
are.
sizable clan?
It is. In particular in West Australia, a very large extended family. And there are now Duperouzels in Adelaide, Hobart, Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane.
And did you ever establish what it was your ancestor was supposed to have done that got him shipped out there?
Well, allegedly, he stole a whole range of different merchandise from a high street drapery shop in Guernsey. And that included scarves, material which his then wife made up into dresses, blouses, shirts, and they used to sell these items. So I think there's a little bit of entrepreneurial flair there. So I'd like to think allegedly he stole all this. But it's interesting, when you read the crime book, and in particular the newspaper account of the trial, it was so crowded with merchandise in the courtroom that the jury and members of the public had to come through a side entrance.
Wow.
So I think it might have been difficult to say, well, look, where did you get all this stuff? And of course, if you read the newspaper account, he says he bought it off a salesman from Jersey.
Oh, it fell off the back of a lorry.
It did, yeah. Oh, what can you say?
We're moving on quite quickly, actually, to your next track. Chinese connection there?
Indeed. This is a lovely, meditative, calming piece of music which we first heard when we went to Hong Kong with the girls, and I had to buy the music. We travelled up from Hong Kong into Shenzhen, into China and back again, but it's symbolic of that trip and the memories we have, but also the fact that Adele, our older daughter, went on to do Chinese at university in Durham and studied Mandarin, for which we're very proud of that accomplishment and endeavour. And now she's a chartered accountant. So it reminds us of our travels to the Orient and Hong Kong in particular, but also how proud Jan and I are of Adele's achievements in undertaking Mandarin and to becoming a chartered accountant like me. And more recently, she's just undertaken a business course in Chinese, speaking business, commercial Chinese all the time. They don't speak any English in the class. So
Bright lady then.
So no, we're very, very proud of her achievements, and it's a lovely piece of music, and it's part of an extended CD track of music of a similar vein. So I love to hear it in the car driving home. It's very calming and peaceful, and well, happy memories.
'So eventually your travels, having been in the Far East and all over the place, landed you in the UK, where you've been for many years.
Yeah.
And at some point along that line, you came across something called WorkAid.
Indeed. Well, having had a corporate life in IT as an accountant and financial controller in the IT business for 30 years, and having published the book on the Duperouzel family history, I was determined to give something back. and in particular to work for a charity. I had already acquired quite a lot of fundraising experience for the brain injury charity, Headway, in raising, in organising, creating and organising a bike ride for them for 16 years with my wife, Janet. And I felt I wanted to work for a charity and give something back, to make a difference. And I prayed about it. Again, my faith was an influence in finding an advertisement in the Catholic newspaper, wanting an administrator. So I came across to WorkAid in Amersham, and at the time I was praying, I said to the good Lord, well, this looks like the opportunity for me, but hang on, Amersham's 27 miles away. And I could hear the voice say, well, yes, but you like driving. That's true. Well, get on your bike and go.
You're going the wrong way to the rush hour.
But you know, from the time I stepped into that unit in Amersham, I could feel the spirit of WorkAid. It just got hold of me. And I knew this was for me. And I have never looked back in the 5 years that I've been associated with the charity. It's probably the best thing I've ever done, to be able to get involved, use all my life skills, financial, administrative, fundraising, publicity and web, but also to interface with 180 volunteers.
And I've known you many years over visiting WorkAid. You've been supporting projects that we've been involved in Latin America. I just know it's a fantastic place. You've chosen track 6, some Jason Donovan.
Ah, well, this is terrific music because in 1993, Suzanne, our younger daughter, the linguist who is into languages, who speaks Spanish, Portuguese and Italian, she at the time with Linslade Middle School, her choir were chosen to be the Joseph Choir at the Palladium. Isn't that fantastic? What an experience for a 14-year-old. They were so excited. And this music, again, having seen the show 3 or 4 times with Jason Donovan and Philip Schofield, is wonderful music, all of it. And we've chosen this song here to remind us of those happy times when she was in that performance. She's a very good singer, and I'm delighted that she, in fact, she did with the choir, she actually performed in 48 consecutive shows. And there were occasions when she didn't feel quite up to it. But you know, determination, application, dedication, she didn't want to miss a show. Isn't that fantastic? So we're absolutely ever so proud of her achievements. And this song in particular reminds us of those happy times back in 1993 when she went to the Palladium. And Jan and I had the opportunity to go along and watch the performance on 3 or 4 occasions and loved it every time. Isn't it fantastic music?
I close my eyes, drew back the curtain to see for certain what I thought I knew. Far
return to the beginning. The light is dimming, and the dream is too. The world and we are still waiting, still hesitating. Any dream will do. Any dream will do. Any dream will do. Any dream will do.
You mentioned the words determine and application just now before we heard that last track. I suspect those are words that could be applied to anybody in your family, and presumably those are two qualities you need very much for Work Aid, and you referred to the 180 volunteers. What are these 180 volunteers doing?
There's a mixture of people working in the workshop, refurbishing the tools and equipment, like sewing machines, knitting machines and typewriters. We have people working in the office, helping. We also have people working in fundraising and publicity. We have people drive the van to go and collect the tools. And more recently, in September, we opened up the Work Aid shop. So we now have volunteers working in the shop.
So just to backtrack slightly to those who perhaps haven't come across Work Aid, the goal is to collect certain bits of equipment, refurbish them, rather than throwing them away, as we do in today's throwaway society, and send them to where?
We send them to East Africa, and we send them to vocational training projects and self-help groups in Uganda, Kenya, Zambia. And I'm very excited now because next year we're going to be sending them to Tanzania as well. And these are the poorest of the poor projects. We don't ask any of the projects to pay for the tools. They're donated by Work Aid, and they are given an opportunity to learn a skill which hopefully will change their lives, and they can become self-supporting, so they can have hopefully an education or get the means to educate their family and their extended families. And we hope in doing this the Work Aid is making a difference and helping to alleviate poverty. And you know, that mission statement today is as true today as it was 25 years ago when the charity was first established.
So that leads us on to your penultimate track, which is some music from Uganda.
It is. When Sylvia and I visited Uganda 2 years ago, we travelled extensively, travelling nearly 1,200 miles from Kampala east to the Kenyan border, to Mbale, and west as far as the Congo border. And the music and the people always love to sing when you're there. And it's fabulous. It's so wonderful. This particular track is a CD I brought back from Uganda. And again, it's symbolic and representative of that trip which you undertook, which was an inspiring visit. And to see how ordinary people are doing extraordinary things with tools to change people's lives. And I'm in no doubt at all, from what I've witnessed at first hand, the tools that we throw away in the UK, if only they could come to Work Aid, we can get them to the people who need them, and they can change people's lives. So this music is a lovely piece of music from a CD, all of which I just love playing. And it's symbolic and representative of that particular visit with Sylvia and the work. It makes me think of the projects, the people we met, and it just inspires me to keep going, keep going. This need is never ending, and I'm ever so grateful to have had that opportunity, and thank the Lord.
museno beera nange wenkuvaako kitange mboyana faanana amagumba mu kiwonvu mbulwa essuubi mbulwa emirembe kyensaba museno beera nange amatabanga mangi oyaganga mungi mukama kyensaba museno beera nange sebo yesu beera nange yesu tondekangawo amatabanga mangi oyaganga mungi kyensaba museno beera nange ekingumya museno ndiddayeeka wakati mu mizira nkulaba essebo wadde bintu byensi bisikiriza wadde bintu byensi binyuma kyensaba ssebo beera nange yesu beera nange yesu tondekangawo beera nange amatabanga mangi omuyaganga mungi kyensaba museno beera nange yesu wange yesu beera nange yesu tondekangawo ai mukama amatabanga mangi omuyaganga mungi kyensaba museno beera nange beera nange beera nange beera nange beera nange beera nange tondekangawo beera nange wadde bintu byensi bisikiriza beera nange beera nange beera nange tondekangawo beera nange wadde bintu byensi bisikiriza beera nange yesu beera
We're coming towards your final selection. You spoke very movingly just now, about the difference work aid can make. How can we, people listening to the programme now, how can we help? What can we do?
Well, there's various ways in which people can help. Have a look in the garden shed. Have a look in the loft. Clear out your old tools. See if there's a sewing machine in the loft.
So you want tools, sewing machines?
Knitting machines, typewriters. And when I say tools, it's all the trades tools, from carpentry, plumbing, metalwork.
Even electrical tools?
Yes, we will take electrical as well.
Battery-operated drills and
drills and sanders and
broken
saws.
forks with a prong missing?
Well, if they've got broken handles, we don't necessarily put a new handle on a broken fork. So unfortunately, it'd have to be scrapped. And we also take haberdashery. So we're looking for a lot of haberdashery as well.
By which you mean curtains or?
Well, it's
what sort of
cotton, scissors, threads, zips,
so anything
buttons.
to do with sewing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, because we've opened up the Work Aid shop in September, which is a very exciting opportunity, we're also looking for items for the shop. And we're taking a whole, range of different things for the shop. We are a shop with a difference. Yes, we have some tools in there, but we also have other items that people have donated to us. There's some art equipment in there, plus craft, galvanised items, books. If they are of a particular trade-related type books, then we will take them. Tin boxes, memorabilia, brass fittings. There's a whole range of different things. And I would encourage listeners, if they have an opportunity, come down to the shop, have a look. So we're looking for things, tools, items for the shop, and fundraising. If anybody is able to provide some income for running the charity and defraying all the tools, we'd be ever so grateful. And fourthly, I would appeal to listeners, if there's anybody out there who's wondering what to do, we're looking for volunteers. All I ask is, bring your enthusiasm. Come down and have a look, no obligation, touch and feel the spirit of Work Aid, enjoy.
And presumably there's no age limit to this. It could be a 16-year-old, it could be
ideally
70-year-old.
above 18. If
ideally above 18.
Otherwise they need supervision. But lasting friendships are made, and a lot of camaraderie, a lot of crack. It's good fun. People aren't left to their own devices. We encourage them, we support them. Bring your enthusiasm, make some friendships, make a difference, and put something back.
And we have to end it there, I'm afraid. Just very briefly, tell us why you're finishing off now with 6 White Boomers.
Finishing off with an Australian track. Rolf Harris made this song famous back in the early 1960s, and it's great fun. In the season of Christmas, I thought, well, why not finish with this song? I've mentioned this song to a number of people over the years, and they'd say that, well, they've never heard of it. But no, it's a great song, and again, it represents a touch of Australiana with me, and I hope it rings an accord with some of the listeners too. It's good fun.
Early on one Christmas day, a Joey kangaroo was far from home and lost in a great big zoo. Mummy, where's my mummy? They've taken her away. We'll help you find your mummy, son. Just hop up on the sleigh. Up beside the bag of toys, little Joey hopped, but they hadn't gone far when Santa stopped, unharnessed all the reindeer, and Joey wondered why. Then he heard a far off booming in the sky. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, racing Santa Claus through the blazing sun. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, on his Australian run. Pretty soon old Santa began to feel the heat, took his fur-lined boots off to cool his feet. Into one popped Joey, feeling quite okay, while those old man kangaroos kept pulling on the sleigh. Hey, 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, racing Santa Claus through the blazing sun. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, on his Australian run. Joey said to Santa, Santa, what about the toys? Aren't you giving some to all these girls and boys? They've got all their presents, son, because we were here last night. This trip is an extra trip, Joey's special flight. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, racing Santa Claus through the blazing sun. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, on his Australian run. Soon the sleigh was flashing past right over Marble Bar. Slow down here, cried Santa, it can't be far. Come up on my lap here, son, and have a look around.
There she is, that's Mummy, bounding up and down.
6 white boomers, snow white boomers, racing Santa Claus through the blazing sun. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, on his Australian run. That's the bestest Christmas treat that Joey ever had. Curled up in mother's pouch, all snug and glad. The last they saw was Santa heading northward from the sun. The only year the boomers worked a double run. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, racing Santa Claus through the blazing sun. 6 white boomers, snow white boomers, on his Australian run.
Bill, thank you very much for coming in, and we wish you and everyone at Workade a very happy Christmas.
Well, thank you, and may I do the same to all the listeners of Radio Christmas. Happy Christmas.
Thank you.